All right, Kyle.
Sunny,
Kyle, you're back. We're back.
we're
Okay,
back.
so
We're here. Today is Wednesday, March 23rd. A beautiful day here in California. How is things in Toronto for you, Sunny?
things are fantastic. I'm excited about our show today. Do you want to maybe give us a quick warm up before we
Yeah, so
introduce him?
we've got a really exciting guest today. His name is Kaelen Dorr, and
Hmm.
he is with Gettr. He is the global spokesman. Well, we'll let him give full introduction. But
Yeah.
Gettr is the fastest growing social network of all time and represents an opportunity for freedom of speech and civic engagement and free speech in society. So let's bring Kaelen in. Let's get rocking and rolling with no further ado.
All right, let's do it. All right, Kaylin, we've
What
got
is
you. Can you
cooking,
hear us?
fellas?
I'm
Oh, I can
sorry.
hear you loud. I can hear you loud and clear. I'm sorry, I don't have a Shiba Inu in my corner, unfortunately. I've got a hound dog who's definitely going to wander
Who,
onto
this
this
little guy?
screen at some point.
He
What?
he wanders a little bit.
Dude, it's
Sweet
alive.
Doge. It's
Uh,
alive.
Cool, Kaylin. Well, nice to have you here, buddy. Really excited. I think your official role is right something around global engagement and marketing, right? Do you want to maybe do the proper introduction? You've got an illustrious career, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I am the master of all, jack of all trades, master of none over here at Gettr. So we do all the marketing, the engagement. Basically, my job is to wake up every day and make sure this is a fun place for people to go and interact, and make sure that we're visible and out there amongst the public at large. So we're really happy to have you guys on. You guys represent a very important part of the kind of the tapestry where we've been here together, and this is fun, man. This has been a lot of fun.
Cool. Yeah, we're excited. I'm not gonna lie. Been a big fan of you could say Getter like platforms that have been avid users, but in the last few years it's felt very dystopian. And Getter was a bit of a kind of a like a shining light, out of the sky that came out in the last few months. I was just like, finally, okay, somebody or an entity that respects free speech. So do you want to maybe I don't know. I'd love to start with. Maybe before we get into the Getter story, I would love
Yeah.
to learn a little bit more about your story and kind of what brought you here today.
Oh man, yeah, it's a long one, and I definitely don't have enough gray hair to reflect it. But I got my start professionally doing advertising and communication strategy for campaigns. Actually, I'm doing field work, which is like knocking doors and cold calling people. But eventually, that led me to meet Jason Miller, who's our CEO here. I've known Jason; he's like an older brother to me for about 10 years now, and he's the freaking man. A lot of companies like this have very weird, eccentric, CEOs or founders or whatever it might be, and he's weird and eccentric, but not in a way that makes me cringe. So that's a big plus. But no, I ran into him about 10 years ago. We did ad and comm strategy for a bunch of really big names in the political space for quite a bit. And eventually we began working with President Trump. I went from there to work in the White House. I worked at the Treasury Department. I worked at a think tank for a little bit, but my proudest achievement is I was a chief marketing officer for President Trump in this reelect, and it was just absolutely crazy what they did to that campaign. The censorship, the blatant ignoring of the facts, the gaslighting was out of control, and so I'm really blessed to be here as a part of the Gettr team, and I get to interact with all sorts of folks. I will say we are live on my Gettr channel right now.
Whew.
Everyone's commenting on the fact that beards are required for this. It's absolutely the case. The first thing I asked when I was asked to do this was, "Do they both have beards?" And I was very pleased to see that was a yes answer.
I
Yeah,
have
mine
not
is
shaved since
ever.
before the turn of the millennia.
It's so good, man. It's so good. Men have beards for sure.
So, Kaylin, okay, I gotta admit, that was a big turning point, I think, for myself as well, right? I mean, growing up, you were always told that the most powerful, person on planet Earth is the sitting president of the United States, and to see what happened to him was shocking, and was just it was just proof, right, that what all these people have been talking about and warning us about is true. But we're really curious about kind of what the, I don't know, whatever you can share about the backstory in terms of how it goes from pain to like, hey, let's build a solution, and how that came to be.
Yeah, well, I think like you said, it's a turning point for a lot of Americans, right? I think everybody saw what happened in 2020, in particular with the Hunter Biden story, the New York Post reporting on his laptop that is now suddenly magically factually accurate and able to be verified. Which, it's again the difference between a conspiracy theory and fact is just a few days nowadays, right? And I think we saw a lot of our friends getting canceled, a lot of very notable people getting canceled, and that terrified us. All right, I know. I remember them going after all my friends on social media. They halved my following on Twitter, for example, and thinking the next thing they're going to do, they're going to come after us. They're going to round us up. We are not that far removed from something like that. I mean, think about it. If they beating big tech oligarchs, your powers that be, if they're successful in stifling your First Amendment right to free speech, they can get away with anything, right? And so we're really happy. I was actually doing something else. I was working at a think tank at around time of launch. I helped Jason with the launch of the app and everything like that on July 4th of last year. And we hit our first million users within days, and then our second million users in just days. And now we're at about 5 million. We're looking to double that here before July.
And was Joe Rogan a bit of it? I mean, because it was the way that at least a lot of my friends started really hearing about it was the Joe Rogan Robert Malone interview. Just curious, did that also play a bit of an inflection point?
Yeah, so that was a pretty big day, man. And what's crazy about it is that a lot of what I do, right, and I've got a team of people that do it, is we actually actively reach out to people and enlist them on into joining in the app, right? That happens with a lot of the big names that are here. Very rarely do they join organically, because again, it's just we're not a part of the establishment or anything like that. And so Joe signed up all on his own after talking to Dr. Malone, which is crazy. I think Dr. Malone's coming for my job. I know he's got bigger and better things to do, but it really makes a guy look bad here. But no, it was an incredible day. We hit a couple of, I think we got 1 million users off of just him joining alone that week, which is just absolutely incredible. And since then we've seen more and more mainstream voices, more non-political voices join the platform. Because again, like the cancel culture phenomenon, the gaslighting, all the things I talked about, it doesn't cut across political lines. You can be black, white, fat, skinny, Republican, Democrat. You cannot even live in the United States, right? And this still be a huge issue for you. And so that's what we're seeing here. Like I said, we got 5 million users, but actually a good chunk of them are in other countries. Like we're active in Brazil, France, Germany, the UK. Japan, India, these are all really big, user bases for us, because this is happening everywhere.
Agreed. And Kaelen, I have so many questions. Sorry, I'm like really excited. But
how
the hell? What's that?
Let them rip.
Let them rip. Okay. Well, a whole bunch. But my first question is many might say that building or rebuilding platforms such as these might not be the hardest part, but trying to get traction and so network effects is quite possibly the harder of the two, right? How do you go about thinking about that in a world where there are these behemoths that already exist? And again, I'm noticing some patterns in terms of things that you guys are doing to bridge technology and make it so that people don't have to necessarily spend as much time. But like, how do you think through that? Really curious. I mean, the network effects are huge. You obviously have something working in your favor, which is that the opposing side is actively telling many of their users to, go pound sand or take a hike. But how do you become more than just like where people go because they got kicked out?
I think that's been a really interesting, dilemma, right? Especially because Jason and I come from backgrounds that, I'd be remiss if I didn't say like we come with baggage, political baggage, right? A lot of people, there's a lot of stigma to those, in pop culture or athletics or whatever it may be to folks that have worked in the Trump orbit. Just, it would be, putting my head in the sand to completely and totally ignore that. But what we've seen is, like I said, the cancellations, these things, they transcend party lines in a lot of ways. Like a good example, right, would be Enes Kanter. I don't agree with Enes Kanter politically on a lot of things, right? He, I think is very pro-vaccine amongst other things, but where we agree, right, is that there are atrocities occurring in China. There's genocide occurring in China, and he has been, knocked down by the NBA countless times and professionally canceled, right? And so he has a home here, and I think there's a lot of that going on. That's why I think Joe Rogan was a big point, was a big flashpoint for us, right? He's not overtly political. Like, obviously, people with political agendas, talk about what he's doing, and things like that. But he really is just, he takes fire for having people on to talk about, like, just people that the mainstream says you shouldn't listen to on his programming, and hears them out. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? It used to be that we could have a discourse, without the conversation ending with, you calling me a Nazi, me calling you a racist, and that being it. And that's where we are now, like, for at the detriment of our country. That's why one of our many taglines is the marketplace of ideas, right? That's how you become better. You don't become better by, succumbing to the hive mind that the left and the big tech, that all of them want you to be a part of. You become better by discovering the truth. It's always somewhere in between, right? That's what really pisses me off about places like Twitter. And I'll use an example, right? As they tell you what you think should be important. We don't want to do that here. And a good example would be what's happening collectively with the Ukraine, right? Yes, like, I'm an Army brat. I understand there are very, very important global, reactions to that, right? There's going to be consequences to what's going on. But at the same time, you couldn't convince me right now that the biggest problem facing someone in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, is what's happening in the Ukraine, right? What's happening to what's important to them is that inflation is out of control. They got to take out a damn loan to buy a sandwich. It just doesn't make any sense. But yet inflation never trends on Twitter. It never, despite people talking about it, it's not a part of the discussion whatsoever. It's not a part of the zeitgeist.
And Twitter has now been weaponized, to push these narratives. So people are coming in and they're seeing it forced into their feeds. You're seeing the news being forced. You're getting special notifications. And I think a lot of people who are still on using Twitter, who are, let's say, awake, to use that term, they recognize that. But still, this is one of the debates that came in Canada. It's like, is Twitter now like a public service, and should they be using, because when the president is on it, and when you have all these large figures that are on it and using it, but now you have this censorship, and it just speaks to this nature of centralization. And the more centralized that systems become, the more secretive and prone to censorship and corruption pervades them. So kudos on creating this alternative, that, because really Gettr, just to simplify things, Gettr is a Twitter alternative. After looking at it and just playing with it, it's really clear it's Twitter, but it's not Twitter.
Well, Kyle, we've got it all, man. We've got it all. We've got live streaming. I'm going to go with my
live
now.
Okay.
We've got our live streaming, which we're doing now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we've also got some things coming down the pipe that I think would interest you guys, especially. We're doing short form video. So actually, I could click on it right now and tinker with it because it's in very early beta. But we've got a TikTok clone. I mean, like how incredible would it be to be able to scroll through TikTok without some sort of predatory algorithm, trying to put inappropriate things in front of you, like, especially if you're a child, right? Like, they've kind of come under so much scrutiny lately for these predatory algorithms feeding, like, body image content to young girls, right? It's disgusting. It's like not okay. Like, just
it's the same with YouTube. I have children, and the ads that get fed to the children are it's mind-boggling. And then the insidious nature of some of the content programming as well, that is is making it way, like, you might watch 10 episodes of, a hot kids show and no problem, but that 11th episode, when you're not paying attention, they're subliminally like charging
Yeah.
your and programming the children's minds. So we need to be really careful about that.
And not only that, man, but like we don't even know like the extent to which the censorship over on like places like TikTok or Instagram Reels is. Like that's what really excites me is we could actually find the next big thing here on Gettr simply because we're not masking or hiding anything. Like that's not the name of the game. The name of the game is giving people freedom and lateral movement to move up and to pursue, their version of the American dream, right? That's what it's all about. Whether it's by, organizing communities on the platform, or just simply your pursuit of the right to free speech, to live out your faith if that's what you choose to do. If it's out there participating in a global economy, like we're going to get into Gettr Pay, where we introduce a crypto system, and we are allowed to direct tip with folks on the platform and contribute to political.
So let's talk about that for a second, because both
Right.
Sunny and I have been deep in crypto since 2013. So like, this is our bread and butter. And like, the Love and Freedom show was a result of the Freedom Convoy. And like, we need to do something. It's clear the mainstream media is completely lost, but really our bread and gravy is that means
crypto. Kaelen, yeah, by way of introduction, which we never did before the call really that well, we'll just do like a really quick thing, but both of us are Canadian. Kyle's actually Justin Trudeau's smarter, wiser, better looking brother, the guy who's not woke. I started India's first Bitcoin business back in December 2013, which still exists today. Wow. And we're like the Coinbase of India. But back to your kind of, Kyle, unless you want to fill in some more gaps, Kyle and I both are crypto guys. We do a bunch of things, events, podcasts, a bunch of stuff. But I was going to ask you is regarding, you talked about, the kind of the political nature, how people, whether you like it or not, would attribute Gettr to some of maybe Trump, blah, blah, blah. There's also, you talked about crypto, right? And I think Bitcoin is kind of recognized as being apolitical. So I'm really curious, like, how do you go about building a technology stack that's impenetrable to the forces that Twitter and others have, succumbed to? Meaning, you know what I mean? Like, is it just about having the right people at the top? Or is it more than that? Is it about also having a long-term vision about building technology that cannot be subversed?
Well, I think a lot of that comes to, they're harming themselves at this point, right? Like, I don't know that they're necessarily a growing threat. Obviously, the threat of censorship will be omnipresent, but you take a look at their stock prices and their user numbers and all those things, they're absolutely cratering, right? Yeah. So with every day that we, chug along and get stronger, they're getting weaker and the inverse.
Interesting.
And that's kind of the way I view it. And also, we get asked this question a lot about like Truth Social, for example, right? Like, oh no, worried about your competitors in the space. No, because this is such a wide-ranging issue. The more people that join the conversation, the better it is for everyone. Not like taking a step back, right? Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, whatever. They're not really social media platforms anymore, right? They're more like data collection entities than anything else. Yes, you can post stuff there, and it's fun. And you can dunk on whoever you want on Twitter, for example, right? But that's not like what they do. That's not how they make money or anything like that. And we, just full disclosure, we're gonna our path to monetization lies really in Gettr Pay, right? It's not in selling anyone's data. That's like the number one promise, is that we will never ever in a million years sell your data to anybody.
Interesting.
And so that's like we're not gonna even go there. And I think that's like, look, if you came to me and said, I know exactly what social media is gonna look like in even 5 years, I'd call you stupid, right? The space is always evolving, people are always innovating, and they're finding new ways to do things. But what I'll say is that we are so far ahead of the curve in the number of offerings and the fact that we are doing things the right way in order to honor our commitment to our user base. And I think that's what is important for, defending the, technological attacks from, whoever it might be, or whatever. Like, it sounds very ideological, but in practice, it's it kind of insulates you from those things, and that our mission is pure in a sense, and that guides us through a lot of these things. Every day we chug along, we get stronger, man. I mean, it becomes more and more real every day. I'll never forget, we locked in, like, Tucker Carlson joined the platform, and I sat there with I had tears in my eyes, because so many people saw what we were doing here and thought we were either full of shit. I don't know if I can curse on the show, I'm sorry, but they either thought we were full of shit, or this was a waste of time, or that this was not going anywhere. And it becomes more real every single freaking day, man. And like, I just wanted to just bring it at this point.
Are you seeing people from the other side of the conversation coming in? Like, I mean, that's like as big of a win as you can get, right? Tucker, Trump, on this side of the fence. Joe Rogan, he is, I think, more of a Democrat, but he just kind of identifies more with the right side more now because of all the craziness, right? But I'm just curious, are there others from like the far extreme of the other side, that the people that are kind of tinkering with it also seeing a similar need, or not really?
No, not yet. Right. Not as many as I'd like. I will say, I know there are people on the platform who are there incognito and are participating. Like, I know there are reporters on the platform with like dummy accounts. Like, unlike some other places, there's no barrier to entry, right? So, they could all be here and we not know it. Not to sound like a crazy person, but what I'll say is that, like I said, Twitter and Facebook, they can't help themselves. Like, they're out there canceling some of the biggest accounts on their platform this week, simply because they stated biological facts about Rachel Levine. Like, they can't help themselves. And this isn't being done by a human, because a human would look at that and see that it's parody and therefore let it slide, right? They've created this ecosystem on their end by which they've dug in so far that they can't help but continue to cancel folks. And that will come for the left. That will come for like everybody. They canceled, again, guys, the sitting president of the United States. I know you guys get how crazy this is, but just, I cannot say it enough. Canceled the sitting president of the freest nation in the world. They can come after anyone. No one's grandma safe. Nothing, man. They're coming after you all. And this is a place to be.
Yeah. So how do we and to remove that power from them is simply just to not give it to them and migrate away and seek alternatives, that at the core are kind of using and abusing you, and it is an abusive relationship.
Do you have a line though, Kaelen? Because I have read online that there are people that are like, no, Gettr does actually ban people, and I mean, is there a line that you draw where certain things are not okay? I'm curious.
There is a line, and I'm sorry I've moved so that way my
beautiful view,
my Dogecoin. No, there's a line, and I think there absolutely should be. Just so you guys are aware, we do have AI infrastructure that stops things like, I don't know, beheading videos or child porn, or like, things we all can pretty much agree shouldn't be on the internet to begin with. We do put a stop to that. Hate speech, so you can't come on here and harass and call someone the N-word over and over, for example. That's kind of a red line. Again, things that like you wouldn't be proud to tell your mother about. Probably shouldn't belong on the internet to begin with. I'll say this, like, if you can't get through a conversation without calling someone the N-word, you should take a break from social media and go, see a therapist or something and get your shit figured out. We kind of want this to be a place where people feel safe, not in like a, oh, snowflake kind of way, but in a, hey, I can exist here without someone trying to threaten my life without repercussion, right? Or my livelihood or anything like that. And so those are kind of the big lines that we draw.
Fascinating. I think, yeah.
But also something, like, you look at it, like, we're not going to let the Taliban on, because the Taliban are on Twitter, but President Trump isn't, right? Like, there's there's a give and take there, and it'll piss some people off, but at the end of the day, like I said, like our mission is pure free speech. Does not mean you can come on and be an idiot. It's like a social contract of mutual respect, right? Like I'll respect your right to free speech if you respect our audience and not come on here and do dumb shit like threaten people or post beheading videos. I feel like that shouldn't be an unreasonable ask. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I guess those all those I completely agree with. The question becomes then who's the arbiter of that, and at one point, what if that person goes woke on us, which is clearly what's happened on the other platforms, right? And how do you protect against that? Is it just the ethos that you've built and you're just confident and won't? Do you know what I mean? Like, because that's how they always get you, right? They always get you with the kitty stuff, and they're like, oh, and then they start kind of encroaching on your other freedoms, systematically, right? But sorry, I'm just digging in a bit because it's such a important thing,
Yeah.
right? Like we're
No,
talking about freedom of speech here.
I get that. Like, who watches the watchers, right? That's going to be that question for until the end of time. What I'll say is that we strive to be painfully transparent with everything. We have terms of service that's up. We've got community guidelines. We've got all these things that exist, within the Gettr ecosystem that allow you to ultimately decide whether or not you want to be on the platform or not. Right. And I think that's something we really strive to do. What pisses people off the most about Twitter and Facebook and their censorship, right, is that it's so blatantly not real. It's so blatant. All of the decisions are made behind closed doors, and a lot of times you're not given a reason for what's happening. A good example would be we actually have a Gettr employee who was banned on Twitter, I guess last month or a month or two ago now, and they banned him for evading a ban. He was like, well, no one's communicated to me that I was banned. Also, if I was banned, why was I allowed on the platform? And they locked him out of his account for 2 days, and they didn't tell him what the offense was. They didn't tell him how he could like when he was banned the first time. None of it. We're not going to do that to you. It's not something that happens here. We're very transparent. What makes us different is that Jack Dorsey would never have sat down here with you guys, right? Like he's not a part of the community. Jack Dorsey is for Jack Dorsey. He's in a room alone, combing his absurdly long beard with a weird, he's God bless him. That's a very fascinating beard, but I mean, like it must occupy all of his time because he doesn't spend any time interacting with the community. And I think like if you look at Jason and I, especially, we get out there, we interact with literally everyone. We're constantly taking in feedback. I can tell when Jason has a free moment because my phone blows up with number of user posts that he's flagging for us to make improvements for the platform, right? That never happened with Twitter.
And do you have like study? One second.
Yeah, please.
Like, do you have like Burning Man, for example, has 10 principles that kind of guide it. Is there a similar kind of like structured ethos, kind of or like principles by which Gettr kind of operates?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not actually 100% familiar with all that, and I'm sorry, I looked down for 10 seconds and my phone rang, so I might have missed the beginning. But
that's okay. I was just saying. So Burning Man, for example, it has 10 principles that kind of govern life on the playa, and those are radical inclusion, radical self-expression, radical self-reliance, decommodification, gifting, communal effort, immediacy, participation, civic responsibility, and leaving no trace. And each of them can be kind of broken out. But by kind of following these principles, which are really, sensible, it leads to, this functioning, abundant, expressive, high vibrational experience for 3 weeks in the desert. And those are something that everybody at Burning Man can relate to the 10 principles. And it's almost like, I was looking on Gettr to see, and I see the main principle is free speech, and understanding that free speech and self-expression is like one of the cores. And I know a lot of other companies have these guiding kind of principles. And I think, Jordan Peterson is writing the 10 rules to Twitter, for example, about how one can conduct, because I think, as as a leadership team, you can also be kind of stewards and encourage, okay, like, how do we not just enter into flame wars and gaslighting each other and, like, getting into battles? Like, how can we encourage like thoughtful debate and respect for one another's viewpoints and respect for individual autonomy and individuality, etc.?
Yeah, I think ultimately it can be summed up in a few key phrases. Obviously, free speech is one of them, right? We want to respect and give everyone an opportunity, a platform to express themselves, organize communities, everything I was mentioning before. I'd also say respect is another one, right? And just respect and common sense are really kind of at the core of all of this. Like, it is very, very, very difficult. I've got bags under my eyes I didn't have, 9 months ago, boys. It is very difficult to do this, to put together something at this grand scale and make sure it's accessible to everyone and constantly entertaining and things like that. But what isn't difficult is simply, respecting the community, and moving forward in that way, shape, or form, right? Or just honoring your commitment. It's not hard. It really isn't. That's like the greatest lie you've ever been, fed by big tech, is that it's very difficult to handle all these things. It's not. You put your flag in the sand, right? And you go with it. There might be little nuances here and there, but ultimately our guiding principle is that one of mutual respect, like I mentioned before. And I'd also say, kind of rejecting cancel culture in of itself is a big pillar that we're built on here. For example, you're never going to see us really, talk trash about other, alt tech, I guess how they're described, platforms. You go take a look. None of us are on the record. None of us are talking about how, you shouldn't go be anywhere else. And I think that's a really important distinction from other companies. That's something that's very easy, as obviously we have a mildly conservative bent, because those people have been, targeted by censorship and cancel culture. It is very easy. We as conservatives very, very often fall into the trap of becoming very tribal. You look back, the last 20 years of politics here in the United States, we get very tribal because we are all grounded in these principles, right? And I think we've gone above and beyond to make sure that that's not an environment that we're engaging in. And that's yet another very, very big guiding principle of ours is, we're not going to go out there and encourage anyone to cancel anyone else, regardless of whether we agree with them or not. Look, if AOC is watching this at some point when she's done trying to date me, I'd love for her to get on the platform, right? Like, we want everyone here, and so just to be as welcoming as possible. I think that's yet another thing that distinguishes us from others.
And is President Trump on the platform?
I don't think so.
He's not, but his username is reserved for him. The keys to turn that on lie in a big gold briefcase under Jason Miller's desk up in New York. So when he's ready to jump on, and I think he will. I think he will join Gettr at some point. We're waiting for him.
Cool. That's inspiring. I have a question for you, Kaelen. I was talking to Kyle earlier, and I was saying, like, now they've got this cross posting thing, which is awesome. So I don't need to go in there to post, which is obviously one big activity. But the other thing is the feed, right? Like my Twitter feed, I value. Do you guys have plans to eventually bring some of that in as well? I think you alluded to the fact that you've got some sort of TikTok integration, but is that what you mean when you say that? Like would I be able to like not have to log in there, but I still have some of that content coming in together?
No, so it only goes one way, right? You're only logging in together, and you can post to Twitter. The similar, it's honestly, it's no different than like using a Hootsuite or anything like that to post, across platforms. But no, there are no plans to integrate your Twitter feed into your feed here.
What did you mean by the TikTok thing? Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
That was
it's not. We're not integrating TikTok whatsoever. It's literally a clone. So I can pull it up here on my phone.
Oh, a TikTok clone where you can do like little short. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, I mean, TikTok is like a really crazy, incredible app. Like
here, real quick.
Okay.
Right now, it's just the
Cool.
engineers and their families, right? But
I love it. Okay, I know what you mean now. Okay, so
Yeah,
you
and
guys are gonna
TikTok is
become
super powerful too. It's like, I've used it, but then it's like, yeah, it's kind of just the Chinese app. Like, I don't necessarily like fully trust, like, I don't trust Facebook, but
oh, totally. I
definitely
deleted it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a great app. Like
It's a great
it's
app.
a
Yeah.
great, so if you can make a clone of that,
Yeah.
like, I think that's wonderful. The other way, like, when you come in, I don't remember which apps it was, but I feel like some apps that I've come in, it's like, oh, here all your friends are already on it too. So any way that, like, can help facilitate easy migration, to recreate one's existing social network on Gettr, would be great for
Kaelen,
users to not
I,
feel
I just
alone
know
when they join.
I just noticed
yeah.
we only had you for half an hour. Are we good for time? And if so, how much time do you have still on the clock?
I could take another 8 or so minutes. I got something.
Okay, cool.
My looking out to the side as the dog is driving me nuts. She wants to go out. Could you come here and say hello to everyone, please?
I hear you.
Okay, then you stay over there then. Um, dude, I love it, man. No,
Any
so
plans to integrate Dogecoin?
I don't know. I think the crypto thing is way over my head. You guys are so much smarter than me. You guys are so much smarter than me on that end. I just, it goes way above my head. I've got to do a real crash course. I might be calling you up asking for help here in a few weeks because I got to do a crash course before we really start diving into it. There are people
DAOs, NFTs, crypto payments, like, it all. This is something that we can
Bitcoin,
definitely
Lightning.
You guys are maybe the only two
help
people in
with.
the world who can explain to me what an NFT is, huh?
Yeah, it's a scarce digital
Probably.
object.
Yeah.
Let's imagine, like, there's,
yeah.
I mean, you can, okay, fair enough.
But
But they're going to change the world. They're going to change the world.
I hope so.
Everybody's going to be collecting apes.
But you did allude to crypto though. So what was that something in relation to Gettr Pay? Because you talked about that a little bit as well. Because I'm curious. You said we're not going to sell your data. We're not going to go the route of others, and you just kind of quickly dropped on the side there something about Gettr Pay. But like, what does that mean? What does that look like? I'm just curious. How's your future of, monetization look like? Because that is ultimately how people get, screwed.
Yeah, no. Essentially, what that looks like, in its early stages, and obviously we're still hammering out how this is going to look. But essentially, it's direct tipping and appreciation. So it would be no different than the way like a Twitch chat would work, or like a Patreon kind of, right? And the way we monetize is by taking like 1 bajillionth of a penny of every transaction or whatever. It's, look, as someone who's done marketing for a while and things like that, this is like a very unique challenge. I don't know that anyone's gone and tried to do something this big without doing anything with people's data. Like honestly, I'd be curious to see what other operations that have kind of tried to bite off more than they can chew. So with that being our guiding principle makes these things obviously difficult. Like, I'll level with you, like it's hard. It's hard to go out and find new people and continue to entice them to the platform and all those things. But like I said, this is something that cuts across all spectrums and is an attractive offering to everyone, and it works. I mean,
Does it ever?
absolutely did, but it absolutely works. And they've been saying for years, like, if you don't like Twitter, go build it, go build your own. We did it. Okay.
I love it. No, I'm not gonna lie. I mess around with Mastodon and all these new kind of emerging things, but Gettr just gets it right on so many things. It seems like you guys know what battles to pick, which I love. Question: VR, Meta, all this bullshit. Like, it turns me off. But are you guys gonna go down that route too? Okay? Thank God. Okay, good. Because that's just weird to me.
It's so weird,
right?
It's like, like, if it's your bag, like, God bless you. I don't get it. I got like an Oculus for Christmas a few years ago, and it freaked me the heck out and didn't make any sense. And quite frankly, if you prefer to live there than to live in the real world, again, we got to have a talk about what's going on up in here. Oh yeah.
Kaelen, I know we're coming down to the end of our time. You said you had 8 minutes, so we probably got a few left on the clock. You
Yeah.
also brought up Jason. Are you able to share? Because I mean, there's not a lot I think people know about him, but he sounds like an interesting character. What can you share about him? Maybe a little bit that people might be thinking about.
Yeah, no, Jason was he's our CEO here. He's actually very, very involved yesterday in the French presidential debate. We're really proud of him here because we sponsored the debate and they actually had him on stage to give a few remarks. So it's one of those crazy things. I've known him for 10 years or so now. He's kind of a mentor and a big brother to me. We met doing communications and ad strategy for a bunch of different clients. I think he was doing stuff. He did stuff for like Rudy Giuliani and some members of Congress from Florida, like things far before I met him. And then we ended up doing TV for a couple of like really big shock the world moments, like Matt Bevin won the governorship of Kentucky, I think in around 2013, 2014, 2015. And like, for example, he was down 10 points in the polls going into election day. We ended up winning by double digits. It's just absolutely crazy. So we struck gold a couple times, and we both got involved in Trump world because we wrote this scathing ad, like just so scathing for Ted Cruz. We were working for Ted Cruz at the time. Absolutely just ripped Trump apart. And when Ted jumped out, we got a call. I was like, "Did you guys make that?" Jason was like, "Yeah, man." Hi, what's up? And he's like, "You work for me now. Like, come on up to New York." And so that's what we did. And so Jason's kind of bopped around and done his own consulting thing for a bit. He was the senior strategist for the reelect this last go around, and continues to work and talk to the president fairly frequently. And he's a good dude. I'm gonna kick his daughter's ass at Fortnite at some point. She thinks she's got the upper hand on me, but we're gonna shock the world there too. But no, I love him to death. He's a good man. I don't know what I'd do without him, and
Kaelen,
what we would do without him.
Where are you guys available? Are you live everywhere? No, right? Are there any countries that's off limits? Like, are you in India? I guess I'll get to the kind of the question I was thinking about. You are? Okay, interesting. Are you guys seeing much use there or any activity?
Yeah, obviously that's a tough nut to crack, just because the volume of like stuff coming at that those guys is pretty high by my understanding. But actually, I think Jason's on his way out there in a few weeks. At the end of the month, he's going to be making a trip.
So as I mentioned, I run a company. We have 2 million users in India. They're all Bitcoin, freedom, crypto lovers. So if there's a way we can work together, we'd love to help you guys get a bit of boost out there. Okay. Anything you want to share in terms of, I don't know, Kyle, do you have any final questions? I'm like, I literally could keep going for another couple hours, but I want to be respectful of your time. I know you got.
I mean, I'll say I'm just like, really grateful for everything that you guys have built here. Back in the day, I was the #1 user of a service called Change Tip, which enabled tipping over Twitter. It was really awesome. It was super powerful. And I think one night in South by Southwest, I gave away like 6 Bitcoins, like in direct tipping. Oh yeah, I was in a petty cab and dressed in a full suit, and we were like doing this like Bitcoin cash cab where we pop people in and do trivia. They're like, "Where are the cameras?" Like, there's no cameras. And then just giving them like 10,000 bits at the time was like $3, and now it's like 300 or more. I don't know. It's a lot. It's $600. But it was a really good solution. I always remember, I was like, man, if Twitter had just kind of actually enabled this solution in a tighter integration, like why wouldn't they? Because it could have really enabled a huge groundswell. So I've got lots of kind of feedback to share around that, and the pay experience and the ability to utilize social networks as payment rails, and to potentially act as custodians of funds, or to just act as rails, like without actually holding on to any of the funds, is also one of the great opportunities in front of us. So yeah, and it was a lot of fun back in the day. You could say like, Change Tip, send Kaelen a taco, and it would know that like taco was like $3, and it was like then then
That's
send
really
that.
cool.
And if you had an account with it, and I would automatically deposit the money into your account. And if you didn't have the money in your account, you would get a notification saying you've just been sent $3 worth of Bitcoin, a taco. Now click this link, log in, literally log in with Twitter, and then that was it. Then okay, you've got it. And so I mean, that was like, it was like this tipping idea within it, but really it became a social payment platform. That's what I saw of it. And then ultimately, like, you know, they kind of sold some of their engineers to Airbnb and declared it an acquisition. And so it's just sitting there.
So Kaelen, okay, listen, Kyle, do you have any questions for Kaelen?
I wanted to just share that.
Yeah.
Truckers, great or greatest? Great
What?
or greater? Canadian truckers, love them, hate them.
What kind of question? Of course, we stand with the truckers are the bomb, man. Look, like, that's the greatest.
I'm just trolling.
No, the greatest thing that, the greatest sin that the left has ever made, right, is they've convinced everyone in society that the implications of all of the egregious things they're doing are not tangible. Like, think about it. Like, you know, oh, it's just kind of in your head. It's not real. It's not really happening. It's all like fugazi, right? It's all up in here. But what they did to those truckers was tangible.
And all the supporters.
That's right.
Yeah, coming after, like, we know people who are, like, you know, threatened. They donated money and they lost their bank accounts. And we were, you know, we interviewed Pat King. He was in jail. I think he might have been let out by now, but you know, he's been held for like 3-4 weeks now under the crime of mischief. I think it's completely bananas. Like, they brought in potentially foreign troops onto Canadian soil to you know, to act as bouncers for, like, the party that was the Ottawa Freedom Festival. And, like, you know, I've referred to it as freezing man because, dude, it was so cold in Ottawa. Like, the environment was unbelievable, but they embodied all the principles of Burning Man, came together for 17 days of the most incredible movement experience of unification, with a message, with a purpose, being civically engaged. And then, you know, our fantastic government decides to just, you know, not even engage. Instead, they enrage.
So Kyle and I have, like, literally hundreds of hours of our commentary on loveandfreedomshow.com, so you can go check that out. But Kaelen, listen, any closing remarks that you want to share? We literally have, we rant about Bitcoin and the trucker convoy on and on. But Kaelen, this is your time, so I want to just wrap it up and let you back to your dog and whatever you need to do. But any final comments? By the way, we'd love to have you back on at any time if you want to just riff on these topics: Bitcoin, trucker stuff, freedom in general. Free speech is really all our stuff that we love. But anything you want to share with our viewers or our, you know, all the people watching?
Yeah, I think I make this point every time, you know, I do an interview, right? And that's that they win when you feel like you're alone, right? You know, someone the other day, you know, Colin was like, that's like the real, like, compassionate conservative, like, you know, thing that I can say here, right? It's they win when you feel like you're the only one in the world who feels, thinks, behaves the way you do, right? And so if anyone's watching this, like, no matter what you are or what you believe or who you like, right? None of those things, you're not alone. You are unique in who you are, but you're not alone. And, you know, we want this to be a place where you can come and just, you know, be yourself without fear of being canceled or, you know, demonetized or anything. There's all these, I'll end with this, right? There are all these kids out there now, and this is all they know, guys. Like, think about that for a second. Like, this is the only thing this is the only relationship they have with social media, which is inherently a good thing. Like, being able to connect with other folks in all these different ways is inherently good. But they have these toxic relationships with these companies, and that's all they're aware of. I'll say, I was at CPAC a few weeks ago, and a young woman comes up and she gives me a big hug and she's just crying. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do? Like, what happened? Did I, like, step on their, you know, pet, whatever? And she was crying because she didn't have anywhere to exist on the internet simply because she was a vocal Trump supporter in her high school. And the bullying got so bad that they had to pull her out of school and homeschool her for your senior year of high school. And that is a world that these people live in now. They want two societies, and at the end of the day, like, we have a lot more in common than we don't. And so I leave everyone with that food for thought. We welcome everyone here. Come on board and join, and just realize that you're not alone, whether you're conservative, Democrat, whatever. We want you to be here. So that's all I got.
Amazing. That's really
They
beautiful.
win when you feel like you're alone.
That's right, baby.
Know that you are not alone. Wise words
divide and conquer.
from Kaelen.
Yep.
Master of ceremonies, jack of all trades, master of none at Gettr, the fastest growing social network platform, freedom platform in history.
Love it. I love it.
Of course, guys. Well, thanks for having me. Seriously,
thank you.
Please stay in touch. I'd love to talk to you guys about how we can continue to work together to make this a better place.
Awesome. Likewise.
Absolutely.
All right,
thank you.
All right, brother.
All right, I'm going to end this stream, guys.